Thank you. If we could switch to the next page, next slide. Thank you. You'll see us all interrelated. You'll find that with Casey's company, with Viridiant, with me as the builder, designer. We work together in the same endeavor to build energy efficient homes, homes that have basically reduced the carbon footprint before we even knew we were reducing the carbon footprint by building energy efficient homes. The zero energy ready homes that I build are the pathway to decarbonization. What happens is that our components that were in our homes that we've been building was the footprint, in my terms, for the IRA bill that was approved last November. So you'll start hearing about it now. You'll start seeing the actions beginning next year as far as for homes that are being rehabbed, the heat pump water heater, which is going to have a tax credit. These will be up to $14,000. The multi-stage or dual stage heat pump compressor, induction cooktop, electric fireplace, programmable thermostats that are Wi-Fi connected. All this that are components of a zero energy ready home are in fact involved deeply in the IRA bill that was approved last year. We were the footprint, the pathway. And just to give you kind of an overview, a typical home built to code releases about 20,000 pounds of carbon in the operational phase. Operational means when the homeowner's living in it, not when it's being built. That's other carbon issues. So our zero energy ready home is over 50% more energy efficient and cuts the carbon release to less than 10,000 pounds. Now, when we add solar and we can reduce that gap of the amount of solar we need on the rooftop because of the efficiency, we're less than 5,000 pounds. So you can see the direction that we're leading to and where the 2021 code is. Next slide, please. And to put it in terms that basically I created a word for my kids called DARST, and it's not a word, it's an acronym. Dreams and reality sometimes touch. And rest assured at Walnut Farms and the villas at Rockets up in Richmond, they did touch. Reality sometimes and will and does touch. So we'll go in further into the case study, but the things that people, the buyer, are looking at, and the people that don't really understand how the homes are built or why they're built like they are, but they see the final product. And that's one of them is feel. So in that August, when it's the hottest in the summer, and all of a sudden your heating and cooling can't catch up and you're just warm, it doesn't happen with the homes we build. In the same regard, in the wintertime, in that cold winter day, when you're worrying about the house being hot, because of our thermal blanket, the house is hot. It's not cold. It works. Sight, that's one of the hardest things to sell when you're looking at a product because it's the clarity of the air. So this is and these slides will be available. But basically, we don't put curtains up in our model homes. We leave them open. So on that Saturday morning when the sun's coming through, in a normal home, you'll see dust particles. In our homes, you don't. And we'll discuss a little bit more why. Here, the house is quiet. It's well insulated. On the outside, even the heating, even the air compressor outside, that too is below 55 decibels. So in other words, you could cook a steak on your grill and you won't hear your compressor. The steak will be loud. And touch is how to control your home. These homes are smart homes. They're ready for the total control. Next page, next slide, please. This is our winner. We'll be up in Salt Lake City next week. We leave for the week to the EVA convention. But this is one of the homes that we build, type of home, and you can see the thermal break on the exterior. But this home has a HERS index of 8. So it's basically a zero energy home. We guarantee the total utility bills on the homes that we build to be no more in our all-electric home, to be no more than $1.50 a day averaged over the year. And the program works. And again, you can see the annual savings, but when you start putting that to 30 years, it's close to 110,000. It's a lot of dollars saved. It's a lot of reduction in carbon footprint. And then the testimonials on the right. Next slide, please. Now, this gets into a little bit about what we do and the efficiencies of a zero energy ready home. So you can say on the technology side, and the blue is your Energy Star. Your standard home is below, but we're 93% more efficient than a standard home that was built in the 2010, 2015. 40% more efficient than your Energy Star home, but we do it. We do this because of the way that we look at the innovation in the technology. So you're looking at a heat pump right there, which is multi-stage. So it's able to ramp up 700 different stages up and down during the day. So it's not, you're never catching it to where it has to come on all the way. The compressor kicks in, and all of a sudden you're fighting to keep that house cold or warm. It has an inverter built in, so it's like the cruise control on your car. And it allows it to run on DC, which means that it goes up and down all through the day. The other advanced equipment is the LED lighting. It's 100% in our homes, Energy Star appliances, and the thermal blanket on the exterior. On the left, you'll see over the solar edge with the solar on it, so you can monitor that from day to day. Next one, please. And you can see below where we all have a union and we all have a task in what we're doing. But Viridiant helps you to design and verify that the system works. We need the rater. Pearl certification tells the story while adding value to the home. And we'll go into that a little bit further, but you'll see there's little logos on the bottom on all of it. So living in tomorrow's home, durability. How do we build the home? You know, we keep the home dry. You see a conditioned crawl to the right. Up to the left, you see the thermal blanket. You see the house wrapped. Structurally, it's a strong home. It's built with 2x6 walls. Next, please. Live better with a healthy home. This is the part when I was talking about the no need of a curtain in the house to showcase what we do. We enjoy that. And when the people are in the home, they realize that it's different. And the more they come back, it's subtle changes. So one of the big things is that ERV, the energy recovery ventilator, which is standard. And it can go up to a MERV 13, which means that we're removing the pollens coming into the house. So it becomes a safe haven. And then the high capacity filtration, that's clean effects at the bottom, which can go down to 1/700th the size of a dog hair and recirculating the air. Next, please. Live more, worry less. It's kind of neat when you're in these homes and that, you see in the testing that goes through these homes, what you're looking at is the blower door, the duct blaster, and examining the ducts before sheetrock finish and keeping a history of all this. Now that's where your rater is, your Viridiant rater or your top build rater. But then when we have all this, it only stays with the builder. So we're taking it to the next level and we're saying, well, we need to create a Bible, a story for the homeowner, and they need documentation. And that's what Casey can do on the next level. Next one, please. Again, well, gosh darn, you can see when we're talking about experience comfort in a new home house, it's also the thermal blanket, the zip with the thermal blanket on it, R3. And that's, I threw that picture and I was looking for a picture of a flashing bat. So that's with the cellulose and the foam. But that guy right there is me 30 years ago. I tell you. And then you can see the advanced framing techniques that we're using, 3-stud corners, ladder T walls. There's a lot of ways to do it. Your rater can help you in your design. It's just an important step. And this is, again, behind the walls, something people do not see. Next one, please. Take control of your utility bills. We talked about the $1.50 that we guarantee with the solar. The homes are highly energy efficient. One of the added pieces and one of the one of the pieces that you'll be hearing about a lot is that picture on the left, the heat pump, water heater. That's one of those things in the IRA bill that's going to get a tax credit. We also have our air handlers are always in the conditioned part of the house, which is very important. So it runs more efficiently. It's not in the unconditioned area of the attic. And then to the left is something that people don't really think about that much, but structured plumbing. Being able to put your plumbing in so it's no further than 5 foot from any fixture, keeping it in a loop. And the other instant savings is the recirculating pump for hot water. We lose about 8,000 gallons of water that go down the drain waiting for our water to get hot. This is a way to solve that and see an instant savings. Next slide. Technical strategies, the simplicity of the build is what we try to do. It's getting a little bit more complicated, but the villas at Rockets Landing was based on that simplicity of design and the pieces that we had. But you can see and highlighted here, I've talked about most of the pieces here, but Viridiant did the designs for Rocket Landing and the manual J's for Walnut Farm. So we don't allow our mechanical installer for heating and cooling to do the manual J. Our units are very energy efficient. Our design is very energy efficient. And we need that to take into account so we don't oversize our unit. Land development on the flip side, that is, if you're doing land development, which we do, you have to always look at north-south, the compass, because you don't want to be shadowing a 2-story with a 1-story for the solar, whether it's put on now or later. And the last piece that I'll just, we went down one road with community solar in the state, and we had a bill approved. We went to the State Corporation Commission. Dominion got approved for $55 minimum bill, which is the second highest in the country, which has really set us back on community solar, which would have resolved the issues and make it easier for developers to build if they didn't have to put the solar on the rooftop. Next, please. So our next piece that we're doing is Solera Woods. It's on 110 acres. And we're looking to have the ability to take these homes off grid. And we're looking at with utilizing bidirectional batteries from the EVs that will be available next year, an alternate water source. So we're using septic and well, but we're looking to treat the waste, the gray water, which is the old term, and so we can send that water back to the root systems or to the wetlands. That takes it to the next level, in our opinion, and that ability to go off grid. And again, we'll be reducing the operational carbon footprint of our home. Next one, please. So now you can see, what we do with a zero energy ready home. Our symbols of excellence are efficiency. And then we have enhanced quality assurances through our raters that go out pre-sheet rock. And then we get our certifications through our rater for Zero, Energy Star, and Indoor Air Plus. And then the next step in that process is the Viridiant EarthCraft program is an example, because in hand, we need to work with them and with our subcontractors to make sure the homes meet the standards to qualify. If they meet the standards to qualify to Energy Star starting next year, there will be a $2,500 tax credit available for the builders. For a zero energy ready home, it's a $5,000 tax credit. And then the final step is the Pearl certification, Green Door. What I call is the home diary. So we're ensuring that we get all this information together. It's getting to the homeowner, and they have a place to go to monitor their home and to add value to it on resale. Next page, please. So you can see we are the pathway to decarbonization. My history has shown the simplicity of design with the villas at Rockets Landing. Walnut Farm was the first zero energy ready home, in Solera Woods. We're going off grid. And that's opening up in 2025, approximately 60 homes. Here's my contact information, and I thank you for your time today. And I believe, Casey, you're up next.
Actually, Jay, I thought I was going to go after you. Is that okay, Jessica? I guess we got the slides
Yeah,
stacked up. That I'm glad you went first. It's a nice segue. Actually, I want to, am I controlling the slides? There we go. So thanks, Jay. It's kind of cool to have a builder speak right before I get to talk about Viridiant and that you've had such good experience working with the Raiders. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Viridiant and EarthCraft and what we do. First of all, I'd like to highlight that Viridiant is a nonprofit organization, and the reason I want to stress that is because our mission is housing affordability, building sustainability, energy efficiency. And we support that through a number of different what we have corporate sponsorship, but we also do certification fee for service so that we can support that larger, broader mission, which involves working with code officials, educating the workforce. We also have a community services division that has a really fantastic home energy audit to help individual homeowners in the community increase the efficiency of their houses. Next slide. So while she's going to the next slide, I just want to highlight that EarthCraft is our flagship. Viridiant got its start as EarthCraft Virginia back in 2000. I think it was 2004, 2006 is when I think things started to operate. But there were a few people, Chuck Bowles of Energy Consortium, the Virginia Home Builders Association, that wanted to bring green building to Virginia. EarthCraft Virginia was founded. And then in 2016, 2017, we rebranded, and then expanded our the level of service that we offer. So in addition to EarthCraft, we do Energy Star, we do basic HERS rating, NGBS Enterprise Lead for Home, Zero Energy Ready. Jay has already talked about that. Passive House, excuse me, among other things. We also do some standalone services. Jay mentioned help with the mechanical design. We do, for those of you familiar with HUD financing, specifically those that are seeking construction loans through HUD, we'll do statement of energy design intent, and then the annual statement of energy performance. We do energy audits, utility allowances, benchmarking, and then code compliance. Next slide, please. So over our lifetime, we've done over almost 3,500 homes in terms of certification, and 32,000 units, which is, I mean, that's a lot of families served. In 2021, we certified 154 homes and almost 5,000 units, which equates to about 2,800 tons of carbon sequestered. One of the things that we really like to emphasize is that, we start with the tight envelope and energy efficiency of systems. That's where you gain the most return on your investment. As Jay said, you add solar and passive electricity into that, you're coming down to net zero, which is kind of where we want to aim for. Next slide, please. I've already talked about EarthCraft a little bit. It was developed down in Atlanta with another nonprofit called South Face in cooperation with the Atlanta Home Builders Association. And it's a green building that incorporates HERS. For those of you who don't know, I'm sure all of you do, HERS is a home energy rating system. That's the basic measure of energy efficiency. EarthCraft expands on that, as a lot of these other programs do. We're focusing, like Jay mentioned, on indoor air quality. We want to obviously lower utility costs, but we also want to increase building sustainability. And everything that we do or through the EarthCraft is to meet those goals. Next slide, please. I'll talk a little bit about LIHTC. Some of you are going to be involved. LIHTC is a low-income housing tax credit. It's administered in Virginia through Virginia Housing, and it offers low interest rates loans based upon Energy Star. But there is a more competitive process where you can get higher loan amounts, and you would get points for pursuing a green building program such as EarthCraft. And these are just touching on a few of the green building programs that we offer in addition to EarthCraft. Next slide, please. EarthCraft can apply to just about any building. We don't do large commercial, but we do small commercial, less than 50,000 square feet. In addition to single family homes, you can see a variety of different projects here. And as we go through the slides, you can see just how big they can be and how complex they can become. But single family, multifamily, looks like Jefferson Brookville down there is a rehab. We do adaptive reuse, new construction, renovation. It's pretty much any kind of construction type. Next slide, please. So their EarthCraft works on a point system, and there's a worksheet with specific categories. Here are the categories: site planning, construction, waste management, resource efficient design, durability and moisture management, indoor air quality, high performance building envelope, energy efficient systems, water efficiency, education and operation, which is actually a big one and it's overlooked, but I can touch on that in a minute, and innovation. By far the two most significant where you're going to gain the most points are in high performance building envelope and energy efficient systems, which Jay touched on there. Next slide, please. So the process is, it was developed around LIHTC, but we've moved into doing more than LIHTC. We've been slowly getting a toehold in what we call market rate projects, those that are not financed and not directed towards affordable housing, but the process is the same. We have an online registration system, which we like to funnel our clients through, and we do an initial review called a pre-review, which kind of like we take a first glance at the project, inspect and see, okay, are you going to be within the target range? We'll give some basic suggestions there. We'll, say for Virginia housing that yes, they can meet these targets, whether it's Energy Star, EarthCraft, or NGBS, and produce a package saying, okay, here's what they have, and this is where we think they can get. But it really gets kicked off in pre-construction. That's when we have what we call a design review. EarthCraft, like these other green building programs, are going to have a workbook, and those workbooks have it segregated and categorized by those different sections that I mentioned earlier, each with different point values. And so this is where we're going to go through with the design team, primarily the developer, the GC, and the architect, and try to identify the areas that where the developer wants to achieve, certain points. It's a very collaborative process. We don't dictate because we can't dictate, but we can help guide. The developers are going to know what the costs are associated with most of these systems. And of course, that's a constraint that we have to kind of work our way through. So that design review is extremely important, but it establishes the framework by which the project proceeds from that point. In addition to in-house staff, which our in-house staff and project managers will conduct a design review and then keep tabs on the points and handle different variances and issues along the way, we have a field staff that's out there physically verifying the installation of the systems and that the project is meeting code and achieving those points through correct installation. We have a kickoff meeting with our technical advisor on site. We like to get the GC and the subs involved in that, particularly plumbing, mechanical systems, where we go over all of that. And this is kind of where we kind of work in with some of our clients. Some of our clients know the game, they know what to do. It's just kind of reorienting everybody. But this is an opportunity for us with newer teams to do some workforce education, kind of bring them up to speed on where green building is today. And I can tell you, when I was doing timber frame back in 2008, I thought I was a good builder, but I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And I've learned a lot since I've been here at Viridiant. Throughout the project, we're going to be, like I said, inspecting. After the construction kickoff, once construction is underway, we're going to do a pre-drywall inspection where we're going to look at the proper installation of the housing wrap and plumbing systems, early mechanical systems, and insulation, which is obviously a big part of making sure that that house stays energy efficient. So finally, at the end, we're going to do final testing and project closeout. The final testing involves something called a blower door test, which is where we're checking the pressure differential between air that we're blowing into the housing unit and how much is leaking. And that's going to give us an indication of have things been buttoned up right. And it can also point to areas that need to be amended. So this process is probably the longer end of it, wrapping up, testing, uh, um, gathering all the documentation. We'll have to have things like your Energy Star certificates. For Energy Star, I think for the mechanical engineers, they have to be registered with as Energy Star MEP. So we have to collect all that documentation. Once all that's in place, that we have to do QA. We do both virtual QA and on-site QA, sometimes a combination of both. When all is collated, we do the final HERS score. We make sure that we're hitting all our points. We're meeting the number of points required to meet a certain level. And then we're certified, or the project's certified. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, EarthCraft, any energy efficient building is going to be based on HERS, the home energy rating system. It's a little bit counterintuitive. The lower the HERS score, the more energy efficient a building is. When you add a green building program such as EarthCraft, it's based on a point system. And so you can see here, for new construction, for example, certified, you've got to hit 100 points off that worksheet, and I'll show you in a minute. The gold level is 150 and platinum is 200. This is not only energy efficiency, but it's different things, like you can get points for like EV charging stations. And it's my understanding that the Energy Star multifamily new construction version 2 next year is going to require EV charging station for multifamily development. Jay, I could be wrong, but I think I'm correct on that one. You've got things like, bike racks and, landscaping, water management. All of this goes into earning points to get that green building certification. Next slide, please. So here's the EarthCraft multifamily worksheet. It's the initial one. You can see that, the total amount of points that are available in that first column under points there. You're looking at, at the early on at the site development, and then it just walks right through the entire construction process. The total number of points you can earn for particular feature, the points that you are planning to seek, and then there's a status which basically keeps track of what you have. Next slide. And so this is sort of like the total. Everything rolls up to the workbook, and so all the totals, and we can monitor this as we're going to see where we're at in the total number of points. And this gives us flexibility as we're working through the project. Let's say a certain item that you were thinking that you might pursue, all of a sudden it's become a little bit of a challenge and you want to see if you can gain points someplace else. That's what these worksheets allow us to do, is to work through that. Next slide, please. I got this a little bit out of order, but this is a spec sheet, and this would come up in design review, where we're going down and we're looking at each component of the building and what we're going to seek to achieve, and then how we're going to achieve it. So this is something that's worked through with the design team in design review up front. So you can see between all of the points worksheet, the specification worksheet, and that workbook, that's typically, that's not typically, that is how the project is sort of monitored as we move through this entire process. And like I've mentioned, EarthCraft gives us a little bit of flexibility here, so that if you think you can't quite make points in one area, you can look at others, and we will help guide and consult in that, that you can pick them up in other areas. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to go through just a little project, some projects, so you can see what kind of buildings we do. I really like this one. That's why I pulled it up. I think it's adaptive reuse. It used to be an office building. It looks like about late 19th century. Beautiful, beautiful building. It was rehabbed to a single room occupancy. I don't know the history on this one, but that suggests it might be a senior facility in addition to office space at the bottom. So this kind of hits, you know, everything. Single room occupancy, senior building. It's got offices, so it's mixed use, and it's adaptive reuse. So even when you're dealing with these kind of complex situations, you can see on the right, it's nearly halving the annual energy usage. And that's pretty impressive for an old building, 100-year-old, more than that. Next slide, please. I just want to call out, that's Community Housing Partners. We work quite a lot with them. They do almost exclusively rehab stuff, and they do some really good stuff. These were every year, if you go back a slide, every year we have our building sustainability conference and awards. And so we select single family projects, habitat projects, multifamily projects, builder developer. There's one other category I can't recall. This was the multifamily project finalist from last year. And you can kind of see it's quite a variety of multifamily projects. Your typical apartment on the left, and the middle, Queens Court, that's a high rise, which we're seeing a lot more of, even in multifamily affordable. Next slide, please. And the winner that year was Queens Court. This is a Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing Project. Don't know the exact, it looks like it's kind of close to Roslyn there. They have, I'm trying to think, 1, 2, 3 other very similar projects, high-rise projects, multifamily affordable, and we are working with them to certify all 3 of those, which are currently in progress right now. This one was certified to EarthCraft Gold. So you can see we can apply these even to buildings that we wouldn't necessarily, like back in 2006, we wouldn't imagine that we would be doing this, but here we are doing it. And I wanted to, Jay mentioned some systems, particularly, multi-stage heat pumps and then the heat pump water heaters. I was at the Green Build conference and expo last week, and it's just jaw dropping, some of the technology out there. One of the things that I came across was tankless heat pump water heaters, and these don't look that big, but you can put them in a series, and they're pressurized through CO2, and these tankless heat pump water heaters could substitute as a boiler for these high-rise buildings. So the technology is just really just running at pace right now. It's really exciting to be a part of this. Next slide, please. Wanted to throw in here a couple of slides about financing, green financing. I was having a conversation with one of my friends that works over at another architect. Sorry, Bryna. And we were talking that, there's not one place that you can go to figure this all out. It's kind of all over the place. And unfortunately, you've got, federal institutions like HUD, Fannie and Freddie, they're going to use one standard. And then Virginia Housing is, they've defaulted to a different standard, which are these green buildings, not necessarily related to Energy Star, but can incorporate Energy Star. Anyway, I sort of drew up this chart to try to unpack the landscape a little bit. On the left are the standards. This is code. This is, Energy Star is actually a standard. It's not a green buildings program, but it's an energy efficiency standard. The next is in lending finance at the top, because we work mostly with LifeTech. It's Virginia Housing, and they are actually a lender. But so are Fannie and Freddie and HUD. Actually, HUD's not a lender, but they work closely with other lenders. I can't remember the name of the one that Janovich or something like that. But they offer programs and incentives for green building. And it ranges from green rewards and preferential pricing to mortgage insurance premium reduction. Over to the right of that center column is federal and state local policy. As you know, with the Inflation Reduction Act, a lot of that policy is being driven through the IRS, particularly with the 45L tax credit, but also the 179D for those of you who are doing commercial development. And then, of course, Department of Housing, Community and Development here in Virginia, which augments the lending advantages of Virginia housing with a supplemental financing, which they called Home Innovations in Energy Efficiency, or HIE. This is tied directly to seeking a zero energy ready certification. And in a lot of cases, it's what trips over a project from being not feasible to being feasible. And lastly, on the right-hand column, we have programs and raters. We've talked about EarthCraft. We talked about NGBS and FIAS. And of course, Viridiant, we are the third-party independent rater. Next slide, please. I mentioned 45L, and so has Jay. I've just kind of got it broken down here for you, so you can see the various tax incentives. Jay's already mentioned it. Just plain Energy Star, which is going to change next year and be more difficult, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, it depends on how you look at it. So $500 per unit achieving Energy Star, $2,500 per unit Energy Star plus prevailing wages, and I'll talk about that briefly in just 1 second. 1,000 per dwelling unit for those seeking zero energy ready, and then 5,000 per unit zero energy ready plus prevailing wages, and they pretty much match the single family down there at the bottom. Prevailing wages. The IRS just issued I don't know what they call it. It's like a rulemaking advisory. This one's 1,000 pages long. But the long and the short of it is the term prevailing wages is really pointing to Davis-Bacon as it's defined in Davis-Bacon. That's what it says. I think there's a lot of confusion out there. The biggest hurdle for prevailing wages is going to be record keeping. You're going to have to keep that payroll record. But in terms of determining prevailing wage, it's fairly easy. The United States is divided into like regions, which comprise, rural counties, and then MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area. And you can go onto a website called www.sam.gov, put in your MSA, and it will give you a list right down every single trade, what the prevailing wage is. And what that is, it's basically to protect local jobs. So that's what the wage is being paid in this particular area. Let's say the greater Richmond area. For a bricklayer, we want you to pay that prevailing wage for anybody that works on your project. I don't think that's a high bar. The difficulty is going to be keeping all those records. So that's it for me, and I think I turn it over to Casey now.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I am Casey with Pearl Certification, presentations about transforming the market for high-performing homes. I want to give you some insights from the field, from the work that we've been doing, which includes the good, but also some of the bad and the ugly, and some of the challenges we face to create a true market transformation. So next slide. So a little bit about Pearl, in case you haven't heard about us before. We make high-performing home value visible to benefit homeowners, as well as the contractors, builders, raters, real estate professionals, and public entities who serve them. We are a public benefits corporation pursuing our B Corp certification right now. And so our mission is really to decarbonize the residential housing sector, and to do so by tying the home improvements and or the high performing features that a home has to home value. Now, why home value? The next slide. Pearl feels that it's absolutely critical that high performing features are part of this kind of home improvement cycle, and that high performing homes are actually worth more to create this virtuous cycle where homeowners will continue to make improvements with confidence that they're going to not only enjoy the benefits of comfort, energy efficiency, indoor air quality as they live in the home, but also that they can get a return on the investment when they sell the home. And so if you look in, let's say a traditional market that is functioning, you could look at typical home improvements like a kitchen remodel. A homeowner might feel that their home is obsolete, a little bit stale. They want to upgrade their kitchen. They want to be able to enjoy the kitchen as they're living in it. But a critical component, especially because homes are oftentimes the largest investment that people have, they want to make sure that they're contributing and protecting that asset and improving it. And so you could do the kitchen remodel, spend $40,000. When you're getting ready to sell the home, the listing agent can market this nice new kitchen. Home buyers can see that as they're walking through the home. And once they sign a contract, the appraiser can take a look at it and says, oh, this is an updated kitchen. I can contribute some added value to this home. And so we get this reinvestment to make sure that homes are up to date in these non-high performing home features that are visible. Next slide, please. That is not the case when it comes to high performing home features. The indoor air quality, the comfort, the insulation levels, the extra steps the builders took to verify that things were done correctly, all of these things are a lot less visible and as a result are ignored. And so what we end up happening is we have market dysfunction right now when it comes to high performing homes, because all the value that Jay is creating or that Viridiant is delivering is too often ignored in the marketplace. And that creates the lack of the price signal to kind of reinvest in additional high performing home features as well. Next slide, please. And so what Pearl is doing is really serving at the intersection of this complex ecosystem of new construction, existing homes, the valuation community, homeowners, and programs to make sure that we're fully capturing and communicating the value of these high performing home features. So Pearl was built from the ground up to apply to both new homes and existing homes. We're also a living certification to guide homeowners on their journey based upon where they are right now in that journey. So if I'm a homeowner and I just bought a zero energy ready home that didn't have solar, but it was pre-wired for solar, maybe the next step on my journey is to actually get solar on that home. And so we want to make sure that we're there to document and maintain that home record, as Jay mentioned, kind of this home diary for the home over time. Because all of a sudden, once a homeowner installs solar, that HERS index is obsolete because that solar system has changed how that energy is being used in that house and how the HERS score represents that home's usage. But importantly, we're here to really complement and not compete with existing green programs and scores. Programs like EarthCraft, labels like Energy Star, Zero Energy Ready, they're all tremendously valuable, and we want homeowners and or builders to take advantage of those, but we want to make sure that that value is understood and persists over time as well. Next slide, please. So some of the things that we have seen, we've been around for about 7 or 8 years. We have seen a lot of high performing home features that were not understood and were completely lost in the sands of time. So this is one anecdote. This is someone who purchased a passive house. Amazing standard when it comes to how well a home performs. But this buyer realized that the listing agent and the seller actually didn't even know that the home met passive house standards. They didn't market it, they didn't communicate it, and he was actually able to get a price reduction of $55,000 less because that value of the high performing home characteristics didn't persist. Once that home was built, that value basically evaporated. Next slide. So that got us thinking, and there were other homes too. We'd walk into a home and it had the Energy Star or EarthCraft, a paper that we found, but that the seller didn't know. And so we started to wonder, how many times does a home's value persist over time? And so we looked at NGBS, so National Green Building Standard. It's a green building program like LEED, where it takes a look at a bunch of different categories, and they have a downloadable list of homes. So we downloaded 1,300 homes that were NGBS certified from 2009 to 2021. And so we went into that list and looked into the MLS, and you could take a look at the tax record and say, okay, how many of these homes were resold after they were initially built by this builder to this high standard? And we found that about 17% of these homes were resold, and we were able to kind of analyze how that home was represented in that multiple listing service. And we found that 74%, so 3/4 of the homes, there's no mention at all of any high performing home features. Not that the home earned a label, not that the home had any, Energy Star appliances. So that 0 is kind of lowest on the scale. And then about 26% of them had a very low, but some mention of the home's quality. So we estimated of these 226 homes, there was about $3 million lost in equity because all the value that was put in by the builders was essentially ignored and invisible once these homes were resold. Next slide, please. So this is one example of one of the better listing quality. This is a home that was built in 2015, sold in 2019. It was NGBS Gold. It had a HERS of 48, which is fantastic, especially back in 2015. And what you see on the right is how this home was listed in the MLS. There is no mention of the green features or the benefits, the indoor air quality, the lower energy bills, the additional comfort. None of that was communicated in the multiple listing service. They talk about huge bathrooms or bedrooms, but nothing about the green features. The reason why this home at least got a 1 is that they did use the MLS green field, that this had an Energy Star heat pump. Now imagine, one of Jay's homes, all that value, and distilling it into the fact that he has one Energy Star heat pump. That is not communicating that full value that Jay put in to that home. And this is a good example of how one of these high performing homes was marketed 4 years after it was initially built. Next slide, please. So it's not just on the new home side of things. On the existing home side of things, we deal with real estate agents and homeowners and appraisers. This is guidance that we hear from listing agents to homeowners. You need to remove the solar panels on your home. They're going to lower your home's value. We have some homeowners who are actually contacting their solar contractors, say, oh, you have to come in and remove them. They're going to go ahead and make the transaction more difficult and lower my home value. That's a problem when these listing agents don't know that they have a marketable feature that can actually contribute to the home's value, and they're kind of giving the opposite guidance to their sellers. Next slide, please. So this is another example. This is of somebody who reached out to an appraiser and said, hey, I want to green my house. Would it add to my home's value? And this is a quote. I redacted the address, but the property situated at this address wouldn't benefit from having green work done. Many homeowners don't buy solar panels, they lease them. This means that since they are owned, no value, since they are not owned, no value can be given to this feature. That actually is somewhat true. But making a blanket judgment to this person that they don't add value is incorrect. And there are other guidances, other green factors that can't be valued on the report, such as spray foam insulation, LED lighting, low admittance windows would not increase the value of the home. So this is the type of information, incorrect information that's out there in the marketplace about high performing homes. Next slide, please. This is going to become even more important when we look at IRA and the rebates and the tax credits. This is actually language from the statute when it comes to the homes rebates, and that's for the quality monitoring to ensure that each home's energy efficient retrofit for which a rebate is provided is documented in a certificate that supports the accurate valuation of the retrofit. So a key part of IRA and market transformation is to make sure that if we're going to spend $9 billion on the rebates and 20 to 25 billion on 25C tax credits, that this isn't just money that's invested and then nobody remembers, but actually being able to document that these rebate funds and these improvements that are being made contributes to a home's value and kind of creates this virtuous cycle of market transformation. Next slide, please. And so what Pearl is trying to do is first communicate the value of green building programs, green building certifications, raise consumer awareness, help them as they're making different considerations, whether or not it's buying a new home from a builder or whether or not it's considering different energy efficiency or renewable investments that they want to invest in their own home, and helping them with the purchase. So that you could kind of see the first top blogs, we do about a blog a week, is explaining, what's the difference between the HERS score and home energy score. And it is confusing. The energy efficiency world hasn't done itself any favors with some of the different things that we've done. It's difficult to explain how a HERS 2 score is different than a home energy score of 2. They're in fact exact opposites of each other, even though they're both measuring the same exact thing, which is how the home is using energy. On the bottom blogs, this is where we want to educate homeowners on some of the tax credits, the rebates, what is the heat pump, what are the benefits to an all-electric home, all as a way to gather and garner more consumer interest and demand for these high-performing features. Next slide, please. And then, as Jay mentioned, we offer a free portal for homeowners to document the investments that they've made in their home, keep their home updated, get access to available rebates in their local territory, whether or not it's tax credits or rebates or utility incentives, and really make sure that they're documenting things as they make investments in it, so they can surface it and make that value visible over time. Next slide, please. So another important component isn't just the consumer education, but it's the agent education and aligning the agents, what's in it for me, with the mission of transforming our residential housing sector. Part of market transformation is actually aligning the incentives of the different actors within the marketplace. And so going to market by trying to fight against an agent or an appraiser's interests can actually stymie market transformation. Whereas if you could align with how listing agents and buyer's agents and appraisers transact in the marketplace, then that's a way to facilitate market transformation. And so we do engage agents, teach them about high performing features, about why these things are beneficial for their clients in terms of the comfort and indoor air quality, and also how they could benefit by understanding and properly listing the multiple listing green fields and market the homes. Next slide, please. And then appraisers too are oftentimes a challenge. You have good appraisers that actually invest in things like taking the Appraisal Institute's green and energy efficiency training, and yet they're commoditized by lenders who just select the lowest bid. So we are engaging with appraisers so that they understand the facts about high performing homes, how solar panels can and should be properly evaluated when they're forming their opinion of value, and giving them the tools and resources so that they may not be able to take a single score or label and translate that into a contributory value, but they could use some other of the tools, the resources, the data, so that they can properly form their opinion of value. Next slide, please. And one of the ways we do that is by filling out the Appraisal Institute's Green and Energy Efficiency Addendum. So in the case of, let's say, a Jay's home, all the insulation levels, the HERS score, the different components, we auto-populate so that the appraiser has it at her disposal, so they can use the different tools in their toolbox to form their opinion of value. So we've certified about 170,000 homes so far, the majority of which are in the existing home space. And so we've issued 170,000 of these appraisal addenda as well. So next slide, which I think is the last. And so kind of bringing it full circle, literally, is, we want to engage homeowners and capture information when homes are being built or being improved. So that might be the resident HERS index, it could be zero energy ready, or an EarthCraft. We want to educate homeowners as they're making improvements to those homes over time, documenting that data. So then we can surface it. So when they do end up refinancing or selling, they can properly market the home, communicate all the hidden value that is in that home, and then eventually make sure that the appraisers have this information so that all the value that a lot of people on this call are delivering is understood and translated into actual home equity as well. One thing I'll often like to say is I kind of want to make low performing homes the green avocado refrigerators of the 2023. I mean, if I have a low performing home, boy, this is obsolete, it's stale, I need to update it, and I'm going to be rewarded when I update that home with a home that's more valuable and also delivers more value for my family as I'm living in it. So I think the last slide. Yep, and so we do have a couple of appraiser-led studies that say when homes are properly marketed and certified, that it could lead to an average price premium of 5%. And that's really just us being this marketing, sales, communication platform, this Rosetta Stone, so that all the high-performing features are properly understood by buyers and listing agents and appraisers. So I think that's the last slide. Yep. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you all three for some wonderful presentations, much to think about. We'd like to open up the floor now for Q&A. I don't see any questions yet in the chat. If you have a question, you can use the raise hand or you can type it in the chat and we will get our panelists to respond. I'll go ahead and start with a question. Jay, I saw on one of your slides about Solera Woods, looked like it was going to have renewable energy and batteries and bidirectional connectivity. And I'm wondering if that development is going to be able to function as an islanded microgrid in the event of a catastrophic loss of power in the surrounding area. Is that something you can speak to?
It has history, Solera Woods. My dreams and reality in this case did not touch. I was involved in the community solar and working with the state senator to get a bill passed for community solar. It's a short story, but in a way, I was up in Denver getting a national award, and the ex-governor was there from Denver was there, and he was the keynote speaker. And I talked to him afterwards, told him, you know, and I called it Solar Garden. I didn't have a word for it. It was just Solar Garden, just 4 years ago. And he says, well, it's called community solar. And I'm coming to the General Assembly and I'll tell them about it. So that's how the path became. And the bill got introduced and it went below the radar. It got passed. And the big question was, and there was a little caveat, and it said that the Dominion could go to the State Corporation Commission and request a minimum bill. That's where everything went crazy. We went through the State Corporation Commission. I testified once. There's a lot of people that testified. With net metering, it's at $6. $6.95 is your minimum. So all of a sudden, they were looking at $80. Well, they settled on $55. And that became the change of action that I had to regroup at Solera Woods. So Solera Woods now is a project that will have a backbone, which will be all electric. I hadn't planned, it's on 110 acres. I didn't plan to clear it. I planned to keep the houses in the woods. But now I've got to clear the ridge lines for the solar on the rooftop, since I do not have community solar to utilize. And then I said, well, I've got to go. In my line of business, it's always creating something that legislation is just not rules, or just, we have to do a workaround because we're a state ahead of it. Things don't change that quickly. So on this workaround, then we came out and we said, well, we'll build these all electric energy efficient homes. That's the only backbone. We'll sit there and we'll put solar on the rooftop, but we'll make them very energy efficient. We'll put a small battery, a 10 kW there, so it can run basically in an emergency. It doesn't have to shut down like solar does with net metering. So we're going, well, let's look a little bit further into it. And I says, well, now we can do the next step. And the next step was basically, how can we reduce the carbon footprint? And how can we now, since we're putting in septic systems and how can we take an advantage to that? So that's how it was created. So the homeowner that's efficient, we'll build them a zero energy ready home. They can have battery, but not efficiently enough battery to be stored from the solar. But when they bring in their EV car and they can utilize that as bi-directional, that's your opportunity to be able to take these homes from time to time off grid. So it is an oasis. And I'm excited about it. And it's just the next level of what I've been doing over the years.
Fascinating story. I love seeing the connection of batteries to the homes and to the grid. And I think that's, where I'm thinking about true sustainability, the nexus between decarbonization and resilience. And that really is the next frontier.
The other frontier is the 400 million in grants that are coming back to the states, to all the states, to incentivize the adoption of the 2021 code, building code. And that's what's on the table right now. So we built to the 2021, but now we're asking every municipality for the state to, say, hey, every builder in the state now has to build to the 2021. That's going to be a very rude awakening for everyone. It's going to be a transition from 2018 to 2021. What Stephen was talking about earlier about the EV, what I build with my Zero Energy Ready, version 2 that goes in effect in January, requires us to have an EV plug-in. But things are changing, but hopefully things will change with everybody working together. So it's going to be an interesting next year.
Indeed, indeed. Well, we've got another minute or two together. Does anybody else have a question or a comment that they'd like to ask or share with our panel? I do see a plug on the chat, a plug for that Green Door app. Looks like Jessica downloaded it during the presentation, and it looks good, and it looks like a great resource. So I don't know if anybody else has downloaded that yet, or maybe you have plans to do that this evening when you get home. All right, well, sounds like maybe we don't have any more questions. Jessica, did you have any closing comments, or are we going to reconvene in the main room?
Yes, so in about 1 more minute, we'll all go back to the main room for a quick preview of what we have in store for us tomorrow. But thank you to Casey, to Stephen, to Jay, and Bryna. This is a very educational presentation. I appreciate your time and knowledge.
Thanks all.
See everyone back in the main room then. Have a great afternoon.
Hello, folks. Well, there aren't that many of you left, but thank you for your time today. Thank you to our speakers and to our sponsors. If you are in Richmond, we hope that you will join us tonight, or if you're in Charlottesville, we hope that you will join our board member, Megan Partridge. Can you skip to the happy hour slides, please? So we are, for the happy hours, it's here in Richmond at Gather Arts District, which is where VAEC has our office. If you're in Charlottesville, it's at the South Street Brewery. Both happy hours are running from about 4:45 to 6, and we hope that you can join us. If not, then we hope that we will see you tomorrow in person at the University of Richmond. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great evening. Take care.